In this video, I want to react to Cope when it comes to nutrition, and in this case, Paul Saladino, which doesn't know anything. And I also want to talk about how liars talk and how truth tellers talk when it comes to nutrition, but also other areas, and you'll see what I mean.
Cholesterol. I get so many questions about this, you guys, and whether eating red meat will raise your cholesterol. The question you should be asking is, are you metabolically healthy?
Just moving the goalposts doesn't really prove that LDL is not a good metric, even though we know it is.
And I believe that if you are metabolically healthy, you don't care if your cholesterol goes up.
Metabolically healthy just means you're at a low body weight. Usually you have low body fat. This is what it means. If you're overweight, you're not metabolically healthy. But even if you're not overweight, red meat is going to increase heart disease risk.
A little bit if you eat red meat. My cholesterol is high. I'll be honest with you.
Wait, so 130. If you want to be safe, it should be below 60. If you want to have like 0% risk arteriosclerosis, so basically LDL clogging your arteries. And his is at around 130, so his here. He's fucked, basically. And he's trying to convince you that his LDL is fine, even though we have a bunch of randomized controlled trials proving that it isn't. And also, I don't like naturalistic fallacies, but if you look at chimpanzees, they have 30 to 50 of LDL, and babies have 30 to 70. And the ideal amount for humans is actually pretty similar. It's probably around 30 to 60. Over 60, you are already increasing the risk of heart disease. And also, to add to that, LDL is not essential because pretty much every cell in your body can create it. And even if you don't consume any dietary cholesterol, your body's going to produce enough. That's the definition of a non-essential nutrient. And like I said, he never really talks about the top of the pyramid when it comes to evidence hierarchy, because he doesn't have any evidence. He rarely mentions studies, and when he does, they're either rat studies or in vitro studies. Like, he doesn't talk about randomized controlled trials because they disprove what he says.
Honest with you, many doctors would tell me to get on a statin, but I'm like,
and they're right. Actually, what you should do is just try to lower your LDL below 60 with diet. And if you cannot do that, then use a statin. But in most cases, people can do that with diet alone.
I'm not going to do that because I'm metabolically healthy. It's easy to test this. You can just get a fasting insulin. And we know that in humans who are metabolically healthy, levels of LDL cholesterol are horribly bad at predicting cardiovascular disease.
Not true, obviously. You have a bunch of meta-analysis and systematic reviews, top of the pyramid, proving that LDL is a very good predictor of heart disease. LDL and blood pressure.
I believe Western medicine is lying to you, that you've been misled by fallacies parroted by your doctor regarding cholesterol and red meat and saturated fat. In fact, cholesterol is beneficial in the human body, participating in the immune response, being associated with healthy levels of hormones and fertility, and being associated with significant longevity in old age. This is a health food. Don't fear it when it comes to cholesterol, but you must be metabolically healthy. And you guys know how to do that if you follow me.
Again, it can be important, but doesn't mean it's essential, because even if you don't consume dietary cholesterol, your body's just going to produce enough. Here's how truth tellers actually talk, which is basically the opposite of Paul Saladino. But I'll give you one example.
We have these statin trials, which you see as a lower LDL cholesterol, you drive coronary heart disease risk down. And then on top of that, we have all of the observational research. You know, there's a meta-analysis, the prospective studies collaboration that included 50 plus studies, 12 million plus person years follow-up in that study. And it clearly shows in these cohort populations, lower LDL cholesterol, lower risk of coronary heart disease.
So when Paul Saladino, with his insanely high LDL, says, don't sweat it, don't worry about it, you don't need to concern yourself with this, how is he scientifically substantiating that?
I don't think he is.
And this is true, but this type of content does not go viral. People want things that are controversial. People want things that are shocking. That's what gets the clicks. Like, if you just talk about studies, no one cares. People are just going to ignore you, unfortunately. And so Paul Saladino gets millions of views, meanwhile this guy doesn't. Which is unfortunate, because this guy actually talks about the studies that are on top of the pyramid. He talks about randomized controlled trials. He talks about systematic reviews and meta-analysis of those randomized controlled trials. And he also talks about observational studies. So he has a variety of studies that he mentions. And we do have a bunch of randomized controlled trials proving statins work, meaning that when you lower cholesterol in the blood, your risk of heart disease goes down and your longevity goes up on average. Meanwhile, all you see on YouTube, especially all these carnivore people, all they talk about is mechanisms. Even if they mention studies, it would be at the bottom of the pyramid, but they don't even mention studies. It's just mechanistic speculation, which doesn't mean anything in the context of science. Like, no one takes that seriously. We're going to play this clip from Paul Saladino on Joe Rogan, and then I want to talk about it a little bit.
One of the reasons saturated fat has been thought of as bad for so long is because it raises LDL. But if LDL is not de novo causing atherosclerosis, then we
Yes, it is.
have a whole different equation.
Well, let's get into that, because this is one of the big questions that I got when I told people I was going to eat an animal-only diet for a month. They're like, what about your cholesterol? What are you going to do about your... And I'll be like, ugh. And then I try to tell them that dietary cholesterol does not raise cholesterol in your blood level.
Yes, it does. Like, what the fuck? Why is this so commonly said? Because, like, if I eat sugar, my blood sugar goes up. But then if I say if I eat cholesterol, my blood cholesterol goes up, people are going to say, oh, that's not true. We already have a lot of studies. But do you need, like, even more to prove that? Like, if you eat sugar, your blood sugar goes up. If you eat cholesterol, like, somehow it's controversial. Like, obviously it goes up. Here's a clip from Nutrition Made Simple, which is a pretty good channel when it comes to nutrition.
What if we could give people eggs and then swap them in and out without them even knowing it? Impossible? Some nifty scientists figured out how to do it. They gave people egg or egg substitute. Indistinguishable taste, but 4 times less cholesterol. Start people off with eggs for 4 weeks, their blood cholesterol level shoots up. Switch them to the substitute, their cholesterol drops. Do the experiment the other way around. Start them off with the egg substitute for 4 weeks, cholesterol goes down a bit from their baseline. Switch to real eggs, cholesterol shoots up. And that's double blind. So the volunteers didn't really know if they were eating the real eggs or not, and even the experimenters didn't know until...
Which means it's uncorruptible. You cannot corrupt these studies where you don't know who the placebo group is. And also, if you look at the research, cholesterol is absolutely associated with lower longevity. As you can see here, the higher the LDL, the lower the probability that you're going to live a long life. So LDL of close to 200 or more is associated with the most cardiovascular disease. Meanwhile, cholesterol under 100 is associated with a much lower probability of dying from cardiovascular disease, which is common knowledge in the scientific literature, but somehow we have so much misinformation in the manosphere in general. And I have no idea why, because it's so clear in the scientific evidence that LDL increases cardiovascular mortality. We have so many randomized controlled trials. It's so established. And then people speculate on mechanisms. I don't care, like, what do you think happens to my insulin when I eat something? I care about heart outcomes. Do people that eat those foods live longer? That's all that matters. And when it comes to red meat or foods that are high in cholesterol, the answer is pretty much almost always no. People live shorter lives when they eat high cholesterol, when they have high LDL. And if you want to minimize your risk as much as possible, you should probably be below 60 when it comes to LDL. And people are going to talk about, oh, but what about testosterone? But that's BS. That's just fear mongering. Just test your blood levels of testosterone before and after, and you're going to see you're not going to see any change. Basically, my LDL is low, my testosterone is 800, so it doesn't really matter. And yeah, my LDL is below 60, so I'm pretty much fine when it comes to that regard.
Lipids, and they just glaze over, and they're like, well, you know, you're taking in a lot of cholesterol, and it's just most people don't have the time to research this or to get into the weeds and to try to shift their perception about what cholesterol is.
But research for these people, basically watching GOATIS videos or Face IQ videos or just watching podcasts or other YouTubers, like, it's not research. Like, research is actually looking at the pyramid, seeing what actually matters when it comes to uncorruptible studies with high quality of evidence and low risk of bias, and actually studying those studies, researching those studies. Especially the systematic reviews and meta-analysis of those randomized controlled trials. That's what matters. Like, the rest is completely corruptible. The rest has a high risk of bias. Just watching a podcast doesn't mean anything. It's not research. You have to read what those studies say, and they all go against what the manosphere propagates when it comes to nutrition advice. But yeah, that's it.